What's up guys, Lon here from Android Authority, and welcome back to another episode of Camera 360. This is episode 2, and on this show we attempt to break down a smartphone camera in about 3 minutes time. There's 60 seconds in a minute, and there's 3 of those minutes, so hence the name Camera 360. Hopefully that clears up any confusion about the title of the show that you guys might have had in the first episode. So on the show, we're gonna give you the gist of everything that you need to know about a smartphone camera while keeping everything short and sweet. We're gonna talk about the features, the camera app, and of course, the image quality. Today's phone is the iPhone XS and XS Max. Let's go ahead and hop right in. Alright, so before we get started, let's go over some of the main camera specs. The iPhone XS/XS Max have dual 12 megapixel wide and telephoto cameras on the rear. The wide angle is f1.8, while the telephoto is f2.4. The front-facing camera is 7 megapixels and has an aperture of f2.2. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's kick things off with the camera app. Apple's camera app, whether you love it or hate it, has always been about simplicity. There's no manual mode, which some may not like, but for the everyday user, it keeps the experience straightforward. The app is clean and pretty self-explanatory. The shutter button, camera rotation, and image preview buttons are accompanied by a carousel of shooting modes. These include photo, portrait, square, panorama, time-lapse, slow motion, and video. Additional settings will show up along the opposite side of the screen. You can adjust the exposure by tapping the focus and dragging your finger up and down. Anything you need is usually just a tap or two away. Daylight conditions are where smartphone cameras tend to perform at their best, and the iPhone does a great job here, but it doesn't necessarily step over the competition. Photos are generally well exposed, have vibrant colors, great detail, and very little noise, but the camera's dynamic range isn't great. Shadows tend to be pretty harsh, as you can see in this photo at the beach, and this photo here is actually pretty underexposed, even though it was taken outdoors when there was still plenty of light. HDR usually helps with boosting dynamic range, but the iPhone's HDR capabilities weren't exactly thrilling. When there isn't a huge difference in lighting across the frame, the phone does perfectly fine, but when there's quite a bit of contrast between bright and dark areas, the darker areas don't show very much detail at all. In low light, the iPhone does fairly well. There's good exposure and detail remains relatively sharp. There is some noticeable noise when you zoom in, but in this case that's kind of a good thing because it means the phone is not trying to over soften the image to compensate. Of course, the front-facing camera is equally as important, especially for selfie purposes, and the front-facing camera on the iPhone is more than adequate, but it has some major flaws. The biggest one is its tendency to over soften skin. White balance and tint can sometimes be all over the place as well. When it comes to video recording, the iPhone performs about the same as it does in photos. It produces a sharp image with good detail, good exposure, and natural colors. Having 4K video recording at 60 frames per second is also a huge bonus and not something that all smartphone cameras have. The image stabilization is decent, but nothing to be overly impressed by. So with all of that being said, that'll pretty much wrap up episode 2 of Camera 360. Overall, we gave the iPhone XS/XS Max a 7.7 out of 10. If you want to find out why, make sure to check out the written version linked in the description below, which covers the camera much more in depth. And if you want to see the full resolution images for yourself, we'll also have that linked below as well. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next episode of Camera 360.